unaware person will not know that they need healing anyway. So what is it, like what makes a person more aware than the other? That's always a question that I ask. And
yeah, it's interesting you should say that, because in my field, like with say people want to lose weight, most of the time they go about it the wrong way because they cut back on food and use exercise as a tool. So I'm just generalizing. So they don't generally have a problem until they start to get a little bit older, when the metabolism starts to change. And usually, when they're in their 30s, they can kind of get away. They can't quite eat what they used to be able to eat when they're 20s, but they can kind of just still get away with it. 40, it's like, okay, things are starting to change a bit. I just need to up the exercise and maybe eat a little bit less. And then when they're 50s, they've gone, I've just got to have to look at food and it jumps on me. Because they don't realise that, I peel everything back to the metabolism, and I explain to them so they are educated, so they know it's not them, it's how their system is operating. But, they wish they had learnt all that when they were younger, right? As what everyone does. I went, oh, my God, I wouldn't have had that whole hang-up with food and dieting and all knowing that, God, I could have avoided all these problems. So me, in my hindsight, I'd go, okay, let's just tackle these women around 35 and start to educate them, because they can avoid all this. They don't have to go down that track, right?
yeah.
But you know what? Unless it's a problem, they can't relate.
Exactly. Exactly. They're not interested. Like if you were to tell them, like, okay, you should, start eating healthily, you should start eating this, that, avoid this, that. To them, it's like, but I don't have a problem. I'm healthy. Like, why should I watch what I'm eating? And, I'm not fat, right? Like, why should I eat, because this junk food, this junk stuff tastes so good, right? Why should I change it?
Yeah.
And you're right, until it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And so, which brings us to the topic of menopause, right? Women, I mean, it's always on hindsight. And, if we try to educate people on, like, you should prepare yourself for menopause, even as early 40s, right? You should prep yourself, like the food you're eating, the exercise you're doing, your mindset and all that. People are not going to listen, because they are, I have 10 years more before I hit that point. It's tough to share unless they have this awareness, like, okay, my body will go through changes, right? Because at the end of the day, no one escapes that. No women is going to escape that. Plus, I mean, at the end of our lives, I mean, none of us is going to get out of this alive anyway. So we need to work through the process, right? Like at this stage, like what's going to happen? And we have to prepare ourselves, right? Like now at our age, we are preparing ourselves for like 60s, 70s. Like, what is it that we need to do so that we have the like in your training, I'm sure, like the core strength, the weight bearing, all of that, right? We have to prep ourselves. So same with people in their 30s, their 40s, right? They need to prep themselves on, their own journey towards menopause. So maybe Alina, you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, it's such an
experience of menopause.
Well, because I actually was diagnosed with menopause. I hit menopause at 40. But wow. I didn't know that's what it was, because I'd finished my divorce at 37, pretty much. I met someone at 39, nearly 40, and I was going through, I don't know, just this really terrible time. I had no idea. And then I thought, oh, my God, I'm pregnant. Because I was just all over the place, and I thought, oh, no, I've been with this person for 6 months and I'm pregnant. My children are 10 and 12, and oh, my God, where did I go wrong? And then I did a pregnancy test. Obviously, that was negative, thankfully. Yeah. And anyway, one thing led to another. And I used to see a professor in Sydney, and he was one of the world's best in endometriosis. And I got onto him purely because I moved, and he's now passed just in the last couple of years, but I've been with him since I was 21. So I came down to see him, and I explained all what was going on. He said, "That's why you come and see a specialist." And he explained to me how endometriosis was an early accelerant for menopause. And I went, oh my God. So we came away with plan A, B, and C is like what we would normally do. And so I actually went on a patch to help me just to regulate my hormones. And he did say, as far as HRT and things like that concerned, with the endo, it diminishes there's very low chance of things happening with breast cancer and things like that. We still have to keep an eye on it, but he was confident enough for me to be on it for quite some time. I tell you what, that was just a life-changing experience. All of a sudden, the sky was blue again, and I was sleeping, and because I didn't recognize the symptoms, and nor did I expect it at 40, because I used to train clients in their 50s, going through hot sweats and so many other different things. And I went, oh, okay. But anyway, fast forward, I'm now nearly 55. I'm still going through it. But he actually explained to me, like, you've got your perimenopause, your menopause, and your postmenopause. And in those three different types of menopause, there's those three different things again. So your body's going through different changes. And, I've come to, acknowledge that not obviously everyone's, the same. It's just like when we all get our monthlies, when we all started, our periods when we were, a lot younger, everyone was at a different age. Some people, they get it really bad. Some people go through it like a breeze, and that's a bit like menopause as well. So what is necessarily right for one woman isn't always right for the next. It's just a collection of tools. So definitely, obviously, things like diet has a big, impact on it.
Yeah.
And eating regularly, and stay away from a lot of the processed foods and alcohol. Sure, you can have them, but have all the natural, like real food first. And then, you can have those little things, later on. But, weight training is a huge, big factor in that as well, because it stimulates a lot of other different hormones. And, it's the, your feel-good hormones, the ones that make you always feel good once you've done something. And it helps you better with sleeping. But I also believe sometimes you need a bit of a helping hand as well. Everyone is different. And I take a little troche that I've got, I have a blood test done. And this lady that I see now, she's 82. She's been doing it for a long, long time.
Wow.
Because I knew I was out of whack again. And I didn't want to be relying on those patches. Like before COVID and all the name, I did not want to go through all that rigmarole of just to get a script filled. I wasn't sick. I just needed to see the doctor to fill the script. But to go through all that process with COVID, it was too stressing. And, so then I didn't want the patch. So I found this lady, and so she takes she does your bloods, and it depends on, where everything's at. And she said, you got nothing of nothing. So my estrogen level was really low. My progesterone was really low. My testosterone was really low.
Oh, wow.
And so she said, right, so this one was actually, it's yam-based, and it was just a little troche. And it goes into the system, like it's within like 24 hours, but according to where your hormones are at.
Yeah.
So, and because I'm changing all the time, that changes as well. So, that has a big influence on, how I'm feeling at the moment. So, so it's a constant sort of battle for me. So I'm sure I'm at the end of it by now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
so it's been over 10 years.
Well, it's been 15.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and yet, like I remember my mother, she just went through it like a breeze. Some women don't even know that they've gone through it. They might get a bit of a hot sweat. And it's interesting, I didn't really know what a hot night sweat versus a hot flush. So, I used to get a lot of hot flushes, when I was younger, and I'd be just standing there, and all of a sudden I felt like an internal fire would be setting off inside, and I'd feel my cheeks. When you get a really embarrassing moment and you feel your cheeks flush? Well, it was like that, but tenfold. And I've gone, oh, my God, I've got no idea what's going on. I had no control over that. Whereas I don't get them now. I'd get a night sweat. And all of a sudden, I'd just be all really sweaty in the bed, and I'd wake up. That's what would wake me up, would be the wet bed sheets and the clothing. I'm saturated. And she said to me only recently, because it happened, and she said, so what does that tell you, Alina? I said, well, I'm hot. She said, no, your progesterone, I can never pronounce it, is low. And I went, okay, well, there you're right. So, and, like I had, sore breasts and that again. I had all these other complications. She said, what does that tell you? So she said, your estrogen is too high. And I went,
Oh,
oh, okay. So we just manipulate that. So
okay.
just adjust that. Because obviously I see myself as going through the exit.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
I'm hoping, but I've still got the endometriosis that I still need to keep in factor, and I've actually got a Mirena that I have and to help combat that because it
Mm,
doesn't go through through your blood system. But I thought I was at the tail end of that one now, and she said, "Oh, I'll
mm,
still have to." Continue to use that. But because I'm at the tail end of its due date now, this is
yeah.
when hormones are starting to become a little bit erratic. So I've got to
Okay.
then now go and get another one
Okay.
inserted. And then hopefully that's it for a
Ah,
while. So yeah, everyone is so different.
wow. Your journey makes mine is like a breeze.
Oh, everyone's different, it's just, yeah, it's such an individual thing. You can't
Yeah,
just say, oh, you wait till you get this.
yeah,
It's like
yeah, yeah,
childbirth,
yeah,
Everyone is different. Some people opt for, elective Caesar. Some have traumatic experiences,
mm,
Some women experience a loss,
yeah, yeah,
Everything is so different, but,
yeah,
you still go through the process.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
such an individual thing. And
yeah,
yeah, I just think it's how it affects you.
yeah. I started for me I started changing my diet a lot more in my 40s, and I also started using progesterones liquid, right? You just apply. This is from Young Living, essential oils with progesterone. There's also yam based. They usually use
Yeah.
that. So you just apply, right, on your the arteries, so that you just apply on your arms, the points where you have your perfume points, basically, right? So that you absorb the progesterone. So I used that, and then made sure that I ate a lot of raw vegetables,
Mm.
so that there is, my gut flora. I think that made a big difference to my hormonal balance. But I also went through some, when I was almost 50, 48, 49, I started to, a cyst started to grow in my ovary. And the thing is, I didn't know it was a cyst. I kept thinking, like, why am I getting so fat around my tummy? And I thought, okay, maybe this is menopause. I'm just getting fat around the tummy, and it was getting bigger and bigger. And I realized this is not normal. After a while, I thought, and by the time I went to see the doctor, she did a scan and I did an MRI. They measured this huge thing, right? This
Oh gosh.
cyst, and it was 35 cm. 35
Wow.
cm.
Holy hell.
And when it did, so the doctor was so worried, like, okay, we need to do the surgery soon because we don't want it to burst. I don't know what's going on in there. And we need to check whether it is a tumor, whether it is cancerous, and all of that. And then, so I did the surgery, and when they removed it, it was 5 kg
My God.
of water. And so they had to remove my entire right ovary along with it, like remove the whole thing. They tested, all is fine. It's just clear water. So she was curious, like, I don't know what this is. Like, why did you develop this? Like, where this, it's not even, they don't have a medical reason.
Yeah.
But I knew where it was coming from, right? On the emotional level, I was, going through stuff, and it was very clear to me what this was. It's like a huge energy blockage, right? I was in this relationship that was really not right for me, really a huge energy blockage. So yeah, so over COVID, my period stopped. I had night sweats, but nothing dramatic. And then it just, it was just after that it was just normal, right? But
Yeah.
I just have to make sure that I watch my diet, that I do my exercises, that I do strength training. This was something a personal trainer said to me a very long time ago. He's a male personal trainer. He said, well, do a lot of squats because it helps to, your body produces testosterone. I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. So that helps to keep the balance, right? So I do a lot of squats in my exercises. I know a lot of women don't like to do that, but that really helps to balance the hormones, right?
Actually, any form of strength training, because it helps build the testosterone. And that's what's
mm,
really good for males, like
mm,
to see them in the gym, because it actually enhances their
yeah,
testosterone activity,
yeah,
and which is great, like when they're younger.
yeah.
But it's even more important when they're older, and that's the same as for females as well.
Mm,
So, any form of like weight bearing,
yeah.
resistance training, yeah, you need to do that. As well as it also produces, like, it's a both produces bone growth, like the hormone
Mm,
that stimulates. It's the only form of wave where you can stimulate bone growth.
yeah,
And obviously not to mention endorphins.
yeah,
So it's a real win-win. But you don't have to go and lift heavy.
yeah,
Just getting some sort of strength. It's really important as we get older, and I think a lot of more of that's coming through now, that
yeah,
people are getting educated that they need to sort of introduce that into their life,
yeah.
as well. I because of my endometriosis and having treatment for that for so long, I went through my cycle, but I never actually had a period
Mm,
because I didn't need to. So when it was time for me to have a family, I was under the professor, and I didn't know when I ovulated. I didn't know anything like that because I didn't have a period for so long. Anyway, skipping through all that, I was very fortunate to have two beautiful children. And then, so even now, when I talk to the lady who's 82 who helps me with that, she said, because she sees so many people, obviously, in her time, and she said, "So when was your last period?" I said, "I don't know." I've got no idea, because
yeah,
probably when I was trying for a baby, that I think
yeah.
was, unless I've had, complications, which means that there's something wrong, but just a general cycle, I've got no idea. So I know that just from past experience with clients, they generally have a big, huge, heavy period. They might not have anything for a while, then a big, huge, heavy period, and then that might last for quite some time,
Yeah.
and that's it. There might not be for anything for a couple of years.
Mm,
Tends to be what I've experienced with other clients. I just can't say that for myself. So
yeah.
I've got no idea. It just keeps me on edge.
Yeah. And I think there's a myth to also there's a myth that says that if your mom or your any female in your family experiences it this way, then chances are you're gonna experience it the same way. But I don't
No,
think so, right?
no, that's so wrong, because I proved that wrong when I was childbirth. They'd say, have a look at your mother. Like my mother, like I think she'd had 4 children, and they, as each one of us, I was the heaviest, and as each one was born, they got a little bit lighter. And the births became quicker.
Yeah.
It was like a couple of hours was the last one, and I think I was about 4 hours. She goes, "Oh, Alina, you were fine. You just like had a few little pains." And I went, "Great." My own birth was nothing like hers. It was like 18 hours, second degree tear, you name it, epidural, because she was posterior. And so I
Ah.
got so much back pain. And then when the second one came along, and they said, he was posterior, because I had, that was in, I mean, they can turn at the last minute, and this is when I was in labour. And I went, "Oh, epidural now, thanks, because I am not going through all that." So he was about 9.5 hours.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
nothing like my mother's experience. And then same as with her. I know the professor said to me many years ago, there's a very good chance there's a link there that with the endometriosis, that it can be hereditary, but because they didn't have the information back then to what they have now, it's
Yeah.
hard for them. So this was like, I was diagnosed with the endometriosis at 18,
Mm,
right? So when I was told by a gynecologist to have a baby,
mm,
and that will
mm.
fix it, and I went, "What?" Have a baby. Anyway, so I went on a treatment. The treatment didn't really agree with me, and so I was still having problems. So I either had to go on to something stronger or up the dose. And I
Mm,
know that was a pathway that I thought, okay, something's not right here. So I ended up getting a second opinion, and I was seeing a specialist in Brisbane at the Royal Women's Hospital, and he said, "Look, Lena, eventually the treatment that you're on, that would eventually turn you into a male hormonal wise. We can do it this, we can go down that track if you wish, or we can go down this track. And I went, oh God, no, oh no, thanks. I'll go down this track. And he said to me then that there's such an old wives' tale. Honestly, it was one of the best world wives. He got the Queen's honour, for all of his work. It was amazing. And so he then explained to me a little bit about the history, and started to educate me a little bit, throughout. And so when I look at it now and, so with menopause, because my mother just pretty well she had to have a hysterectomy at 40 because she had a ectopic pregnancy. So the tube had burst, and anyway, she nearly lost her life with that.
Wow.
But up until then, she had all these other major problems. So I can't really sort of gauge on her, but she's still, like the professor said to me, even if you take everything out and with the hysterectomy, you still have to go on some sort of hormonal treatment. So it doesn't always fix everything.
Yeah.
So you still have to manage it. So anyway, Mum, she still went through her things, but nothing like what I did.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And I look at my daughter, and my experience is so different to what she's experienced now. So, she's coming through quite healthy, So I don't know, you can only gauge, can't you? You can't sort of say just because it happened to one person means it's going to happen to another.
Yeah. I think our bodies operate so differently. And also generation to generation, we consume different foods.
Yeah.
And then we also, not just foods, but the environment, the exposure, how much of toxic stuff we're being exposed to as well. So all of that, we can't really rely on. Look at how my mom experienced it. Yeah, it's just different.
Well, I know if I look at my mother's generation, they never really had the middle age spread, so to speak, but nowadays, there's a lot of people who have got, and I deal with women, they just can't shift the stubborn fat around their stomach, and they say they see their shape changing and they're getting wider and but a lot of it can be addressed by knowing how to eat properly.
Yeah.
And, it's not just about eating healthy food, but when you just look at the two different generations, there's a lot more processed food in our diet now. Definitely. And alcohol compared to back then, everything was just in more of its natural state.
Yeah.
And now it's about the faster, the better. The more convenient, the better. We're saving time, So all those influences have a huge, big impact. That's why I say try not to overthink it. Just keep, keep just food in its natural form. Yeah. I say if you can't eat it, if you can't grow it, don't eat it.
Yeah.
Just to keep things simple. And I'm not worried about potatoes or, bananas and, I can't have that because it's carb. And I thought, well, yeah, you don't have a problem with downing a bottle of wine, but you're scared of a potato.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just natural, just normal fresh food. And just keep it simple because, getting back to that, high benchmark, if you set the bar too high, you're going to feel like you're never going to achieve. Just keep it simple. Get rid of the processed food and the alcohol, sugar, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But, I don't mind a bit of sugar, but most of my diet is based on, normal, wholesome food.
I watched a YouTube interview that day of Dr. Hasim. He's well-known cardiologist from the UK, where he was banned from social media because of his views on the vaccines, right? So there was one question that was asked, like, how much sugar do we actually need in our diet in order to function? And he said 0. So, that is so true, isn't it? And I think we have this false belief that we need sugar for fuel, for calories, or, to burn. But actually our body has this ability, right, to convert from protein and fat, right, to give us the fuel. And there's so much fake news out there by a lot of health organizations, right, telling us what we need to consume and all of that. So we actually do need to do our proper research.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things, when you said about the sugar, I need my sugar to keep me going. Same as with coffee. I mean, I love coffee, but some people just cannot. I mean, I love a coffee in the morning. Don't get me wrong, but I don't rely on coffee to get me going. I like coffee. It's only half strength, but I like it because I like the taste. Yeah. But a lot of people, what they would do is they'd have a coffee first thing in the morning and then usually just grab it out the door, and that's the only thing they've eaten. until maybe, you know, say mid-morning or lunchtime. And by the time the dinner time comes, they're just ravenous. And then that's, you know, when we're talking about the habits and those sorts of things. So they get up the next morning, they're really tired. I'm not saying everyone, but I'm just talking about the average woman going through menopause. You know, they can't sleep, so they would unwind. And then they would get up, really, they can't get up early in the morning because they're really tired, but they repeat that whole cycle again.
Yeah.
So I generally say, you know, it's not about just force feeding yourself. I always think address the problem, like for me, if it's the morning that's the problem and they can't eat anything because they're too full, it's because they've overindulged overnight time because they haven't eaten enough during the day. So I would say, okay, let's just look at the night time. I make a small little change there. And in the morning, I would say, look, if you just have a smoothie, half a smoothie, just something to get the metabolism going, and you slowly start to build different little habits back in. And before they know it, they're eating regularly, you know, like consistently. But they can't go and force feed themselves because they're going to feel sick.
Yeah.
But it's just those small little increments and flipping it around. So, you know, when they have their coffee, they've also eaten something as well, not relying on the coffee to wake them up and to stimulate them, to get them through the day, to do it all over again the next day, you know, like that as well. Sugar is so addictive.
Like once you start with a lot of carbs in the day, then you keep wanting more. But if you start with something that is, you know, less sugary in the morning, right, then you get, you rely more on protein, then you have more fuel and less of a crash, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. And I think because, you know, like I don't know if I have like a small bag of lollies, because there's ones that are close by that, you know, I've had the small bag and maybe 15 lollies, assorted lollies in there. I know in the past when I've had that, like at my second job, for instance, because I've enjoyed it, and therefore I'm not really hungry, so I don't have my meal. And because I don't have my meal, because I'm not really hungry, I've like skipped a meal. And it's only because I know what's going on. But if I didn't know what's going on, I would just keep repeating that cycle. So therefore I'm not eating as frequently, so I'm slowing my metabolism down. So it's not so much the lollies, it's what they do to you. They want you to have more, and before you know it, you go, oh, okay, I was like, I've still got all my lunch in my bag, but I've eaten these lollies.
Yeah.
Eat your food first, then you can have your lollies.
This topic of menopause is a huge topic, and I think we can go on, and we should do another episode on menopause, right? In down the line.
Well, definitely, because we've only just been talking about our own experiences, and you know, obviously that's such a huge, big, you know, topic for many women, and also we can invite other women in to share their experiences or have questions, or you know, even share, you know, some of the things that, you know, may help them, because like, even though we're talking about our own experiences, you know, somebody else sharing theirs can help somebody else as well.
Definitely.
Which is what we're all about.
So if anyone has questions about menopause, please put them in a comment below. We'd love to hear them. Share your personal stories. I just realized looking at the video that there's something going on with the color of my hair now. I don't know what.
Oh, I can't see it.
Can you see it? Or does it appear normal at your end? It appears really strange at my end. There's something wrong with my Zoom app for some reason. There's something going on. So hopefully we can make some adjustments in the editing. If not, then I'm going to look just so that you all know I don't have green hair.
Oh, see, I can't see that. All I see is mine.
Yeah, I see my hair appears green on the screen, which is very strange. So anyway,
no, it's all right from this end.
We are done with today's episode. We will continue this conversation for sure, right? It's a really interesting conversation talking about menopause, especially when we want to be empowered at midlife. So thank you for listening to us. I'm Shamala Tan from Singapore.
And I'm Alina Anderson from Queensland, Australia.
Yeah, we'll see you all very soon. Bye for now. Like on social media, we see these people with giant upper lips, right? It has become like a duck's beak, right? And they still think it's not big enough because they've got, dysmorphia, right?
Yeah.
And they just keep doing it. Like